examination.
Thank you. May I proceed?
Yes.
Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon.
What do you do for a living?
I'm the Chief Coroner and Chief Medical Examiner for Rosewood County.
What qualifies you to serve in those positions?
I have a medical degree from the University of San Francisco, as well as 26 years of experience as a pathologist.
On March 27th, did you perform an autopsy?
Yes, I performed the autopsy of Jason Johnson.
What, if anything, did you learn about Jason Johnson before you conducted the autopsy?
I learned Jason had been brought into the emergency room almost immediately due to shallow breathing.
What happened to Jason?
Despite doctors' best efforts at CPR, Jason passed away from cardiac arrest before 9 a.m.
How did you proceed from there, doctor?
I took a venous blood sample, and with it I conducted 2 tests, the first to test for alcohol and the second to test for drugs. Finally, I analyzed his medical records.
Let's take those 3 steps one by one. What were the results of the first test?
I determined that the decedent had a blood alcohol content of 0.05.
How high is that blood alcohol content?
0.05 is within the 0.08 limit for intoxication. While it may cause slight impairment, it is not nearly high enough to cause death.
What about the second test, the drug test? What did you find here?
I found significant traces of the amphetamine drug Adderall, consistent with the decedent having taken 40 milligrams of the drug within 10 hours of death.
What are the effects of a drug like Adderall?
The amphetamine acts as a single cardiac stimulant.
Doctor, what do you mean by single cardiac stimulant?
Imagine you're running on a treadmill. If you're running at the same pace as the treadmill is going, you're fine. If the treadmill is sped up to go faster than you are, you'll struggle to keep up. Finally, if the treadmill shoots up to maximum speed, you'll go flying off.
How does that connect to Adderall?
The drug speeds up your heart without allowing your body the chance to catch up. This can cause your heart to speed up, blood tissue to, and your heart tissue to become damaged and even death.
Was Jason's dose of Adderall enough to cause death for a typical teenager his size?
No, it was high, but not within the normal range for toxicity. That's why I looked into his medical records to find out more.
Let's talk about those medical records. What did they tell you?
I discovered that he had a heart defect known as hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
What are its effects?
It causes the heart muscle to thicken, blocking blood flow to the heart.
How does that connect to Adderall?
Adderall speeds up your heart without allowing your body the chance to catch up. This creates a situation where heart attacks become even more likely and deadly.
Doctor, what was your ultimate conclusion in this case?
The high dose of Adderall found in Jason Johnson's system directly led to cardiac arrhythmia, which ultimately killed him.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you. Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Cross.
Good afternoon.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yes.
Doctor, isn't it true that cardiac arrhythmias are common amongst those who suffer from HCM?
It is, yes.
And the most common cardiac arrhythmia is atrial fibrillation, correct?
Correct.
Which is basically an irregular heartbeat, correct?
Correct.
Now, Mr. Johnson had a BAC of 0.5 at the time of his death, correct?
Correct.
Alcohol dehydrates the body and decreases the amount of blood volume that returns to the heart, yes?
Yes.
Which can decrease heart function and trigger abnormal electrical impulses, correct?
Correct.
These negative effects of alcohol would be especially dangerous to those with heart conditions such as HCM, like Jason, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Johnson had a severe case of HCM, did he not?
He did.
In fact, his symptoms were so bad that he had a septomyotomy scheduled in this March to relieve them, correct?
Correct.
So the alcohol could have been enough to stress him out, right?
It's unlikely that the alcohol acting alone would be
But
enough.
could it have?
Possibly.
Yes?
Sure.
Thank you. And that could have been enough to cause his arrhythmia, yes?
While unlikely, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson also had trace amounts of Adderall in the system, yes?
Yes, 40 milligrams.
Yes. And Adderall is a commonly used prescription drug, correct?
Yes.
30.
And Mr. Johnson had only taken 40 milligrams of Adderall, like you said, yes?
Correct.
Whereas the maximum prescription is 60 milligrams, yes?
Yes, for someone with a prescription.
Right. And Adderall is considered dangerous when it's taken above the maximum prescription level, yes or no?
Yes.
But 40 milligrams is well below the maximum, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? How much Adderall was found in Jason Johnson's body?
40 milligrams.
And what is the maximum dosage for Adderall at a given time?
At a given time, 20 milligrams.
And did Jason have a prescription for Adderall?
He did not.
So what did this tell you?
He told me that the Adderall in his system most likely was the cause of his cardiac arrhythmia, which led to his death.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time. May the witness be excused?
You'll be excused.
At this time, the prosecution requests a time check.
The prosecution has 7 minutes and 53 seconds remaining for direct examination.
Thank you. May I proceed?
Yes.
Good afternoon, officer.
Good afternoon.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a police officer in Rosewood County.
Can you describe your professional background for the court?
Yes, sir. I have a degree in criminal justice. I'm a graduate of our police academy, and I have extensive recognition. I have extensive training, in drug recognition and sales.
Are you familiar with Rosewood High School?
I am.
How so?
Earlier this year, I was assigned to serve as an undercover officer at Rosewood.
What did that job entail?
Well, since I look about as old as a high school student entered in a fake court competition, I pretended to be such a student in order to investigate drug use at Rosewood.
What did you focus on during the course of your investigation?
I spent most of my time speaking with students.
Did you speak with any students in particular?
Yes, Alex Weaver, a transfer student, Jason Johnson, the victim, and Ray Concha, the defendant in today's case.
Is the defendant Ray Concha in this courtroom today?
She is.
Can you identify her for the court record?
Sure. She's sitting right at the end of counsel table wearing a light pink button-up shirt.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness had identified the defendant?
The record shall so reflect.
Did the defendant ever give you any reason for you to suspect her of selling drugs?
On 3 separate occasions, sir, she did.
Well, let's take them one by one. When was the first time?
Around mid-February, Jason Johnson, the victim, missed school for a few days due to a bad reaction to drugs.
So what did the defendant do that made you suspicious around mid-February?
When I talked to her about it, she told me she had access to drugs, an amphetamine called Adderall. She even offered some to me.
What about the second time the defendant made you suspicious? When was this?
A few weeks later, I was shopping in Diamond Heights. Now, that's not even in the same area as Rosewood High School, but I saw the defendant in the market there, purchasing plastic Ziploc baggies and nothing else.
Objection, Your Honor, this is narrative.
Your Honor, the witness finished her answer.
I'm going to allow the question and the answer to stand.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Officer, did you do anything at this time?
I did. I looked into the defendant's vehicle, which I recognized from school, and noticed a jacket covering up a blue backpack in the back seat.
Officer, did you notice anything else being covered up inside the defendant's car?
Upon a closer look, I noticed a ledger with names on it, a roll of bills, and a plastic bag with 5 pills in it.
When was the third and final time the defendant made you suspicious?
On the day of Jason Johnson's death,
What happened?
I searched the defendant's car in detail.
Officer, what did you find in the defendant's car on the day Jason Johnson died?
3 things. I found a bottle filled with what I recognized from the label as Adderall, what appeared to be the same blue backpack as before, and several plastic baggies with 5 pills each in them. I also found $180 in cash.
Your Honor, may the witness approach the exhibits?
Yes.
Now, turning your attention to Exhibit A, do you recognize this exhibit?
I do.
What is it?
This is the photograph I took of the contraband I discovered in the defendant's vehicle on the morning of March 27th.
Now, drawing your attention to Exhibit B, do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes.
What is it?
These are the amphetamine drugs after they were uncovered in the defendant's car.
Your Honor, may the witness return the receipt? Officer, having found all of this, what did you conclude?
I determined that sufficient evidence had been gathered to place the defendant under arrest, so I proceeded to do exactly that.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yes.
You began your time undercover at Roseville High School on February 4th, correct?
That's correct. My investigation might
Thank
be
you.
killed.
And your goal was to look for drug problems in the band, correct?
That's what my assignment was, yes.
So you joined the marching band,
That's correct.
and you got to know members of the band, didn't you?
Yes.
Including Alex Weaver, Ray Concha, Jason
Objection,
Johnson.
compound question.
I'll sustain that objection.
And you got to know Alex Weaver
That's correct.
and Ray Concha.
And Jason Johnson, yes.
When Jason returned to school on February 21st, you asked him where he got the Adderall pills, didn't you?
I did, and he didn't
But he didn't
respond.
answer.
It
Did
seemed
he?
like he was protecting someone.
But he didn't answer.
No, he didn't.
And from that, you concluded that Jason might be protecting the person who gave him the drugs, right?
That's the impression I received.
And the next day, you saw Ray at the store, didn't you?
It wasn't the next day, it was a few weeks after that.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. A few weeks later, you saw Ray at the store, didn't you?
That's correct.
In the next town over, in Diamond Heights.
Yes.
And when you saw Ray at the store, you noticed her car in the parking lot, didn't you?
I did.
And when you saw her car, you looked into her car.
I did, yes.
You pulled yourself over the hood of the vehicle to look into her car.
That's correct. And in that vehicle, I saw money.
But you pulled
drugs,
yourself
and
over the hood of
ledger.
the car to look?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you. And you used your flashlight to look into the car?
Objection on irrelevance.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Yes.
This is relevant to the defense's theory of the case that that Officer Doherty rushed her investigation to blame my client, Ms. Concha, for the crime of selling drugs and the murder of Jason Johnson.
I don't want to give the defense any leeway in building up their theory, so I will overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you used your flashlight to look into the car?
I did.
And from this light only, from just the source of your flashlight, you saw the backpack?
Well, there were street
And-
lights in
and-
the parking lot, and there was
but-
still a bit of ambient light in the sky.
But it was nighttime, wasn't it?
It
So-
was going on nighttime.
But it was night, wasn't it?
It was late evening.
And from this light, you saw the backpack?
And the drugs, and the money, and the ledger with names on it. Yes.
On March 27th, Jason died from alcohol and substance abuse. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's what I was told.
And you had a discussion about this with Principal McAllister after it occurred, didn't you?
I did.
And the principal told you to find out if Jason had bought Adderall from someone on campus, correct?
That's why I was there in the first place, to discover the source of the illegal drugs on the campus.
But when this event occurred, the principal told you to find out if Jason had bought drugs from someone on campus.
That's correct.
Then you talked with Alex Weaver, isn't that right?
I did.
And you said to Alex that we should find out who did this to Jason.
Yes, I didn't want any more
And
incidents to come.
Alex looked anxious when you said this to
He
him?
seemed distraught that his friend had died.
Anxious, even?
He seemed out of sorts. You could call it anxious.
So anxious then, yes.
That's correct.
And a few hours after you talked with Alex, you were called into the principal's office, were you not?
I was, yes.
And then you learned that Alex told you of the suspicions about Miss Concha being a drug dealer, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, no further questions.
Redirect?
No, Your Honor.